I never imagined my world could shatter with a single word. It was a normal family dinner, or so I thought. Ryan, my perfect boyfriend, the one I had trusted more than anyone else, the one who made my heart race with every smile, every gesture, he froze the moment my sister walked in. Gemma. She wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't supposed to make an appearance, let alone at a dinner where I was introducing Ryan to my parents. But there she was, leaning against the doorframe, looking just like she always had. Messy hair, oversized jacket, that familiar weed scent clinging to her like it was her second skin. Ryan's eyes flickered. For just a second, his posture tensed. His hand, the hand that had been pointing at a photo of me from high school, froze midair. The change was subtle, but it was enough. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the confusion in his face. The awkwardness that followed was unbearable. He couldn't look at her. His gaze kept darting away from Gemma, as if he was avoiding something, or someone. It felt like the air around us thickened, and I couldn't understand why. Gemma, in her usual reckless way, started making jokes about Ryan, questions about his past, his bedroom habits, her teasing edge as sharp as ever. And that's when I saw it, the way Ryan's face twisted, the way his eyes briefly met mine, almost pleading. But it wasn't the words that hit me the hardest. It was the silence, the way Ryan kept avoiding the truth in Gemma's eyes. That moment felt like everything I thought I knew about him, about us, was slipping through my fingers. Something was wrong, and I needed to know what. I just didn't know how deep the secrets went. Ryan and I had been together for over a year. We had that kind of connection that seemed perfect, effortless, like it was meant to be. He was everything I could have wanted. We both had stable jobs. He worked as a financial analyst for a prestigious company, and I worked in software development, managing my own project team. Life was good, or so I thought. Ryan was the kind of guy who remembered the smallest details. He would show up with my favorite coffee, make me playlists with songs I'd casually mentioned liking, and always held the door open. He had that old school charm that made him irresistible. It was easy to fall in love with him, and I did, deeply. I thought I knew everything about him, or at least I wanted to. There were no red flags, at least not for me. His family adored me, and I quickly became close to his parents. They were warm, welcoming, and from the outside, their life seemed like one of success and happiness. It was everything I had ever wanted. Then there was Gemma, my sister. She and I had a complicated relationship. We were close when we were kids, but over the years, we grew apart. She dropped out of high school, got involved with the wrong crowd, and turned to a lifestyle I could never understand. I was the quiet, studious one, the one who always played by the rules. Gemma, on the other hand, couldn't care less about rules. Tattoos, late-night parties, and endless chaos were her world. Despite everything, I always tried to be there for her. I'd give her money when she needed it, let her crash at my place, and sometimes we'd even laugh together over old memories. But she was never someone I could count on, and I couldn't imagine her having any lasting impact on my relationship with Ryan. She was just Gemma. But that night at dinner, everything changed. Gemma's arrival at my parents' house wasn't just a casual surprise. It was a storm that Ryan wasn't prepared for. The look on his face when he saw her, it was as if something inside him broke. His usual confidence, that ease he carried with him, vanished in an instant. After dinner, we went to the guest room to look at old photo albums, a cozy tradition my mom loved to force on guests. It should have been a nice, intimate moment, but the tension was palpable. Every time Ryan glanced at the door, I could see him flinch, like he was bracing for something. And that's when Gemma walked in. The awkward greeting, the forced smiles, Gemma's casual remarks about Ryan's past. All of it added up, and I started to realize maybe there was something about Ryan I didn't know. In the days following that dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The way Ryan had tensed when Gemma walked in, the way he couldn't even look at her. It kept playing in my mind over and over, but every time I brought it up, he brushed it off. She just looks familiar, he kept saying. I don't know why. But I knew that wasn't the whole story. It didn't help that Gemma seemed to enjoy making things more uncomfortable. Every time I spoke to her, there was always something sly in her tone, a glint in her eye as she teased me about Ryan. She'd ask, in the most casual way, if Ryan was as good in bed as he looked, or make crude jokes that seemed aimed more at pushing my buttons than anything else. I knew her too well. This wasn't just teasing, it was an attempt to get under my skin, to make me question something. But what? I started noticing other things. Little things. The way Ryan would become distant when we talked about certain subjects. He'd avoid discussing his past, his childhood, and any conversations about his college years. And every time I asked why he never talked about his family in detail, or why he never spoke much about his friends, he'd deflect, change the subject, or brush me off with a laugh. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the feeling in my gut, the one I couldn't shake, kept growing stronger. My mind kept replaying Gemma's words at dinner. She had laughed when I asked if she had ever slept with Ryan. She had deflected, but there was something more in the way she'd said it, as if she knew a secret, one that she wasn't willing to share, but not because she didn't want to hurt me. She was enjoying it. I decided I couldn't let it go, so I did what I swore I'd never do. I confronted him. It wasn't a grand confrontation. I didn't yell. I didn't throw accusations. I simply asked, gently, if there was something from his past that I needed to know. Something that might explain his weird reaction to Gemma. Maybe something that could clear the air and help me understand. Ryan hesitated. His face flushed. Then, almost as if the words had been building up inside him, he blurted out, "I can't tell you. You'll think less of me." His voice cracked. His eyes avoided mine. And in that moment, I realized that whatever it was big. And it was something he feared would change everything. The following days were a blur of confusion, mixed emotions, and unanswered questions. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't ignore the look in Ryan's eyes when he said those words. "You'll think less of me." He had never been this distant before. We had been together for over a year, and there had never been a moment where I questioned him or his intentions. But now, everything was different. The person I thought I knew, the person I trusted, seemed to be slipping away before my eyes. The tension was suffocating, and I could no longer pretend everything was fine. I couldn't stop thinking about Gemma's comments, the strange tension between her and Ryan. So I did what I thought was the only thing left. I called her. I needed answers, even if I didn't want to hear them. Gemma picked up on the first ring. Her voice was rough, as though she had been expecting this conversation. "What do you want?" she asked, the irritation in her tone obvious. "Tell me what's going on, Gemma," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why did Ryan react like that when he saw you? What's really going on?" Gemma was quiet for a moment, and then she laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "You think he's perfect, don't you? Your perfect little boyfriend. Well, sweetheart, he's not. He's not even close." My heart raced, but I stayed calm, waiting for her to continue. "I never said I hooked up with him," she added, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "But you know, he's not as innocent as he seems. He's got a past, a big one. You're so blind, don't you see it?" I felt a chill wash over me. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She paused for a long time before responding. "I saw him at a party once, one of those exclusive ones. You know, the kind where money talks and nothing else matters. He was there with some of his friends. A different kind of crowd than you're used to, I bet." I didn't want to believe her, but I could feel the pieces falling into place. "What kind of party?" I asked, my breath catching in my throat. "Drugs, alcohol, you name it." "Ryan?" "He was right in the middle of it all, like he belonged. Like he was one of them," Gemma continued, her voice growing more intense with each word. "He wasn't just attending those parties. He was organizing them. And I saw him, you know. I saw him in a way you wouldn't want to." My stomach churned as I processed her words. "Saw him doing what?" I asked, dreading the answer. There was a long silence before Gemma finally spoke again, almost casually. "He was tied to a bed, with 2 women, and he asked me to hold his hand, as if it felt good. I don't know if that's the kind of guy you want to be with, but I'm just telling you. You wanted the truth, and now you have it." The world felt like it was crashing down around me. I didn't know how to process what I had just heard. This wasn't the Ryan I knew. The Ryan who held doors for me, who shared sweet little details about our future. This wasn't him. I couldn't even look at him the same way anymore. I hung up the phone without saying another word, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew I had to confront him. Now. But as I sat there, I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear the truth. That night, Ryan came over as usual, and the atmosphere in the apartment felt heavy with the weight of everything that had been said, everything that had been left unsaid. I had spent the entire evening in a daze, replaying Gemma's words in my head. The more I thought about it, the more my doubts grew. What if there was truth in her accusations? What if Ryan wasn't the person I thought he was? When Ryan walked through the door, I could barely meet his eyes. His smile faltered as he saw the tension in the room, the air thick with uncertainty. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked, his voice laced with concern, but there was an edge to it, a nervousness I hadn't noticed before. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't pretend everything was fine. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. Ryan stiffened. He knew something was coming. He dropped his keys on the counter and walked toward me, but I held up a hand, stopping him. I wasn't ready to be close to him, not yet. "Gemma told me something tonight," I said, my voice shaking despite my best efforts to remain calm. "She said things about you, about your past." Ryan's expression changed instantly. His face went pale, and I saw the slightest tremor in his hands. As he folded his arms across his chest, he was bracing himself. "What did she say?" His voice was quiet, almost cautious. I took a deep breath, holding myself together, but the words came out sharper than I intended. "She told me about the parties, the drugs, the people you were with, and the incident with the women." Ryan's eyes flickered with a mixture of guilt and shame, but there was something else there too. Fear. Fear of losing me, I realized. Fear of what would happen if I knew everything. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he said, his voice low and almost pleading. "I didn't want you to see me like that." I was silent for a long moment, just staring at him, my mind racing. I had trusted him. I had built a life with him, and now everything felt like it was crumbling. But I couldn't let myself react too quickly. I needed to hear the truth, even if it hurt. "Tell me what happened, Ryan," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Tell me the truth." He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath before sitting down on the couch. His face was pale, his usual confidence gone. I wasn't always the man you see now. After college, I got caught up in things. A group of friends, parties, and the high life. It was all about who you knew and what you could get. I wasn't proud of it, but I didn't know how to get out. I wanted to be someone. I wanted to be important. I felt my stomach twist. This wasn't the Ryan I knew. This wasn't the man who told me about his dreams, his plans. This was someone else. He continued, his voice cracking slightly. "The night Gemma saw me, I was at one of those parties. I didn't organize them, but I was definitely involved. I got caught up in the drugs, the alcohol, the people who didn't care about consequences. And that night, I don't even remember most of it. I was too high, too lost in the moment." He paused, running a hand through his hair, looking lost. "And then the police showed up. I was tied to a bed when they found me. I was too embarrassed to tell anyone. I thought I could just forget about it, pretend it never happened. But it did, and I've been running from it ever since." I stared at him, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't the man I thought I was falling in love with. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice trembling now. "Why didn't you trust me with your past? I could have helped you." He looked at me with those deep, regretful eyes. "I didn't want you to see me like that. I wanted you to love me for who I am now, not for the mistakes I made." I felt the tears begin to well up in my eyes. I had trusted him. But how much of the man I loved was real? How much of him had been hiding behind a carefully crafted facade? "I didn't know how to tell you," he said softly, his voice breaking. "I was scared of losing you." I stood there, torn. The man I thought I knew had a past I couldn't erase. I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know if I could move forward with him after hearing all of this. But one thing was clear. Everything had changed. The days that followed our conversation were the hardest of my life. Ryan and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was awkward, uncomfortable, like we were two strangers trying to navigate a conversation that should have been simple. I was drowning in my thoughts, in the weight of everything he had confessed. The man I had loved, trusted, had been hiding a past from me that was too dark, too messy to ignore. I tried to keep it together for the sake of our relationship, for the sake of the life we had built. But every time I looked at Ryan, I couldn't stop seeing the picture Gemma had painted of him, of who he used to be. The wild parties, the drugs, the shameful acts that had haunted him. I tried to move past it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was bigger than I had imagined. Ryan, for his part, tried to fix things. He told me over and over that he had changed. He had stopped going to those parties, stopped hanging out with those people. He'd found a job, settled into a routine, and built a future for us. He said he wanted to move forward, wanted me to see the man he had become, not the one from his past. But I was still stuck. Every time we talked, I felt like I was getting only part of the story. There were still holes in what he was telling me, and my suspicions grew. He had said so much, but had he told me everything? Could I even trust him to be honest with me now? It wasn't just his past that I couldn't ignore anymore. It was the way he was acting now. He was still distant, still avoiding the conversation about his past, still deflecting when I asked deeper questions. He would say the right things, but I could tell he wasn't being completely transparent. There were moments where his face would cloud over, as though there was something more, something he wasn't ready to face. One night, as I was sitting alone in the living room, my phone buzzed with a message from Gemma. I hadn't spoken to her since the dinner, but her messages had kept coming. Cryptic, taunting. "Did you really think you knew him?" the text read. "Do you think the new Ryan is real? He's still lying to you. He hasn't changed. Just wait." I stared at the message, my heart sinking. I hated that Gemma was right. She had always been a troublemaker, always poking and prodding. But what if there was truth to her words? What if Ryan was still hiding something? What if I had been blind to it all along? That night I confronted him again, my patience wearing thin. "Ryan," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I need to know everything. No more half-truths. What else are you hiding? What have you not told me?" He looked at me, his face crumbling. "I've told you everything, I swear." But I didn't believe him. Something in his eyes told me that this wasn't the whole story. "I don't think you have," I said softly, "and I need to know what else you've kept from me. Because if I don't know the full truth, I don't know if I can keep doing this." Ryan's face went pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. He looked at me as though he was searching for the words, but I could see the struggle in his eyes. "Please," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "don't keep hiding from me." He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. When he opened them again, I saw the fear in them. Fear of losing me, fear of the past swallowing him whole. "I was involved in more than just those parties," he confessed, his voice breaking. "I wasn't just attending them. I was connected to people who were dangerous. I helped set things up. I was part of a network. I didn't just go along for the ride. I was a part of it." My heart dropped. I felt as though the ground beneath me had shifted. Ryan had been more than just a lost soul in his past. He had been active in something dark, something that involved people I could never understand. "I'm not proud of it," he continued, his voice trembling, "but I thought I could get out. I thought if I kept my head down, I could leave it behind. And for a while I did, but it's not that simple. Not when they still know you, when they still come around." I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He had been part of something far worse than I had imagined. He hadn't just been a participant. He had been a player in a dangerous game. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning?" "I wanted to," he whispered, his eyes filled with regret, "but I was scared. I thought I could just be the person you wanted me to be, but I can't be that guy if I'm lying to you." I sat back, the weight of his words pressing down on me. I had asked for the truth, but I wasn't sure I could handle it. The man I had loved, the man I had trusted, was someone I no longer recognized. I thought I was ready for the truth. I thought that once Ryan finally admitted everything, I could understand him, accept his past, and move on. But hearing the full story, hearing just how deeply he had been involved in something so dangerous, so dark, shattered me in ways I wasn't prepared for. For the first time in months, I found myself questioning everything. Had I been blind? Had I built my life around a man who was still living in the shadows of his past? That night, after Ryan's confession, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, images of the things he had been a part of flashed before me. The wild parties, the drugs, the manipulation. He had been involved with people who could ruin lives, who operated in ways I couldn't even imagine. And now here I was, tangled up in his mess, in his lies. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe that the man I loved was still in there somewhere, but the reality of it all was overwhelming. How could I just let go of everything that had happened? How could I reconcile the Ryan I knew with the Ryan Gemma had described? The Ryan who had organized those parties, who had been part of something bigger, something far more dangerous than I ever imagined? I spent hours sitting in the dark, alone in the apartment we had shared, thinking, overthinking, until my mind felt like it was spiraling. I kept telling myself that everyone has a past, that people can change. Ryan had said he was different now, that he had left all of that behind him, but how could I believe that? How could I trust that the man in front of me, the man I was planning to spend my future with, wasn't still lying to me, hiding even darker secrets? By the time morning came, I felt like I had been crushed under the weight of it all. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and terrified. I looked at Ryan, who was lying next to me, but the closeness between us felt like a lie now. It felt like everything we had was built on sand, and at any moment, it could all collapse. Ryan, sensing my turmoil, reached out for my hand, but I pulled it away. I couldn't touch him right now, not when I felt so lost. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I never wanted you to find out this way. I thought I could protect you from all of it, but I can't hide anymore. I need you to know who I really am." I stared at him, my heart aching. I wanted to forgive him. I wanted to believe in us, in the love we had built, but how could I move forward when every part of me was screaming that I couldn't trust him? "I don't know what to do anymore," I said, my voice barely audible. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can love you and still be afraid of what's hidden beneath the surface." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Ryan's eyes welled up with tears, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't lose you. I've changed. I've worked so hard to leave all of that behind. Please don't leave me now. Please don't give up on us." His words cut through me, but they didn't heal the broken pieces of my heart. The truth had come too late, and now the person I had trusted, the person I had believed in, was standing before me as a stranger. I stood up, walking away from him, the distance between us a chasm that I wasn't sure could be bridged anymore. "I need time," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I need time to figure out if I can live with this." I stepped into the other room, closing the door behind me, but I knew I wasn't just closing the door on him. I was closing the door on everything we had, everything we thought we were building together. In that moment, I knew that the woman I had been before this was gone, and the woman who stood in front of that closed door was someone else entirely. The days following that night were suffocating. I tried to go about my routine, but everything felt wrong. The silence between Ryan and me was deafening. I kept my distance, spending most of my time at work or alone in my apartment, unable to face him. He would text me, leave voicemails, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. The weight of his past was crushing me, and I couldn't bear the idea of pretending that things were okay when they weren't. I spent hours at night going over everything: the parties, the lies, Gemma's words, Ryan's confession. Part of me wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that he was telling the truth when he said he had changed, that he had left all of that behind. But the fear, the doubt was still there, gnawing at the edges of my thoughts. I couldn't ignore the reality that Ryan's past wasn't just a few bad decisions. It was a whole life, a dangerous life, and that life had been a part of him for so long. But then, one morning, everything changed. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop sipping my latte and scrolling through my phone when I saw it. A message from Ryan. I had been avoiding him for days, but something in me, some lingering hope, made me open it. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," Ryan's message began, "and I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking you to give me one last chance, not for me, but for us. Please, let's talk. I can't lose you over my past. I won't let it define us." I stared at the message, feeling my heart rate spike. My first instinct was to ignore it, to keep running away, to hide from the truth. But then I thought about everything we had been through, the good times, the love we had shared, the way he made me feel in those early days when everything seemed perfect. Was it possible? Could we rebuild what had been broken? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure about anything anymore, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I couldn't keep pretending that I had all the answers. I called him. My hands were shaking as I dialed his number, my stomach twisted in knots. When he picked up, his voice sounded hesitant, almost like he was afraid of what I might say. "Hello?" he asked, his voice soft, unsure. "Ryan," I whispered, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I think we need to talk, really talk." He didn't respond immediately. I could hear the sound of him taking a deep breath, bracing himself. "I'll come over. Just please, give me a chance." We agreed to meet at my place that evening. When he arrived, the tension was unbearable. Neither of us knew what to say, how to start. We stood there for a few moments, just looking at each other, the distance between us palpable. Finally, I broke the silence. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Ryan," I said, my voice steady but pained. "But I need to understand. I need to know that you've really changed, that you're not just telling me what I want to hear. You said you've been working on yourself. I need to see it. I need to feel it. Can I trust you again? Ryan's eyes were filled with emotion. He took a step forward, his voice thick with sincerity. I've been working on myself every day. I want you to see the man I am now, not the one I used to be. I can't change the past, but I can change who I am moving forward. Please, don't give up on me. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision before me. The truth was, I didn't know if I could move past everything. I didn't know if I could ever trust him the way I did before. But I couldn't deny the love I still felt for him. And I couldn't ignore the fact that he was fighting for us, fighting for the chance to prove himself. I'm not saying yes, I said slowly, but I'm willing to try. For us, for what we had. Ryan nodded, his eyes filling with gratitude. Thank you, he whispered. I won't let you down. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if we could ever fully repair what had been broken, but for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be perfect, but it was worth fighting for. The days that followed felt like we were walking on a tightrope. Every word, every look, was carefully weighed. Like one wrong move could send everything crashing down again. Ryan and I had decided to give it a shot, but the air between us was thick with uncertainty. The trust we had once shared now felt fragile, like it could break at any moment. Ryan was doing everything he could to show me that he had changed. He was open about everything, or at least as open as he could be. He kept reminding me that the man I had met was the man he wanted to be, but I couldn't stop wondering, was it enough? Was it possible to rebuild what had been lost? I spent hours replaying our conversations, trying to decide if I was being naive, if I was allowing myself to be fooled again. But every time I looked at him, I saw the effort. I saw the man who was trying. Maybe that was all I could ask for. But then, things started to get worse. It wasn't just the lingering doubts in my own mind. It was his past. It wasn't staying in the past. I began to notice the small signs that maybe he wasn't as free from those old habits as he claimed to be. His phone would ring, and I would catch a glimpse of unfamiliar numbers flashing across the screen. He started getting messages that he would quickly delete, messages that seemed to make him uncomfortable. It wasn't long before I started questioning whether I had made the right decision. One evening, after a quiet dinner, I noticed Ryan's phone light up with a message. I wasn't one to snoop, but something in me couldn't let it go. I grabbed the phone and opened the message. It was from an unknown contact, just a single line. It's been a while. You in for the next one? I felt a chill run through me. My hands trembled as I read it again, trying to make sense of it. It wasn't a casual message. It wasn't just a, hey, how are you message. This was something more, something that felt familiar in the worst way. I looked it up at Ryan, who had been sitting across from me, unaware of what I had just read. The calm exterior he was trying so hard to maintain cracked in that moment. I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. Who is this? I asked, my voice steady but cold. Ryan froze. His eyes widened as he saw the phone in my hand. For a moment, there was panic in his expression, and then he quickly reached for the phone, but I pulled it away. Ryan, who is this? I repeated, more forcefully this time. What does this mean? He sat there, silent, not answering, his gaze shifting away from mine. The silence was deafening, and my heart sank. I had already known the answer, but I needed to hear it from him. I needed him to be honest. I don't know, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. It's someone from my past, someone I used to know, someone I thought I'd left behind. But I could see the truth in his eyes. The shame, the fear of being caught. He wasn't being honest, not completely. You haven't left it behind, have you? I asked softly, the reality hitting me like a blow. You've just been hiding it from me. Ryan didn't answer, and in that silence, everything I had built with him seemed to unravel. This wasn't the man I had given my trust to. This wasn't the person I had fallen in love with. I had tried so hard to believe in us, to believe in him, but it was all a lie. The man I had been holding on to wasn't real. I need some space, I said, standing up and walking away from him. My voice cracked as I spoke, but I didn't look back. I need to figure this out. Ryan reached out to stop me, but I stepped away, shaking my head. No, Ryan, I can't do this anymore. I walked out of the apartment that night, not knowing where I was going or what I was going to do. I didn't have the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep living in this web of lies and broken trust. I had to choose myself, even if it meant walking away from the person I had once believed in. The days after I walked out of Ryan's apartment were a blur. I spent them alone, grappling with the mess of emotions that had taken over my life. Anger, betrayal, disappointment, but also relief. It was a strange mix of feelings. I was heartbroken, but I also felt a sense of freedom, a weight lifting from my chest. I didn't know where Ryan was or what he was doing. I didn't reach out to him, and I didn't want to. In that silence, I began to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I took time off work. I spent long hours walking through the city, reflecting on everything that had happened. I met up with friends, people I had pushed away while I was wrapped up in Ryan's world, and slowly I remembered who I was before him. I remembered the woman who was strong on her own, who didn't need someone else's approval to feel valuable. It wasn't easy. The pain of losing him still stung, and there were nights when I cried in my apartment, wondering if I had made the wrong choice. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. I couldn't keep living in the shadows of Ryan's past. I deserved better than the lies, the secrets, the broken promises. I deserved to trust the person I was with, and I couldn't do that with Ryan. One evening, as I sat in my favorite coffee shop, my phone buzzed. It was a message from him. "I'm sorry, I know I've failed you. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me." I stared at the screen for a long time, the words swirling in my mind. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The apology didn't change anything. It was too little, too late. I had already moved on. I learned something crucial in those weeks of reflection. We can't control the actions of others. We can't fix people, no matter how much we love them. But we can choose ourselves. We can choose our own happiness, our own peace of mind. We can decide to walk away from toxicity, from people who don't value us the way we deserve to be valued. And that's exactly what I did. As the months passed, I focused on my work, on my personal growth, and on surrounding myself with people who supported me. I learned to trust myself again, to believe in my own strength. I realized that I didn't need someone else to complete me. I was whole on my own. I've had relationships before, and I'll have them again. But this time, I'll never settle for less than I deserve. I won't ignore the red flags, and I won't accept excuses. I'll trust in my own worth and never allow anyone to make me question it. It's been a year now since I walked away from Ryan, and I'm in a better place. The scars of the past are still there, but they don't define me. I've learned to embrace my own journey, and I'm stronger because of it. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Don't be afraid to walk away from people who don't treat you with the respect you deserve. You are worthy of love, trust, and honesty. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. And remember, sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to leave behind what holds you back, even if it means facing the unknown. You're stronger than you think.